Lisa Marie Presley did not choose fame. Lisa Marie Presley never went looking for fame. It simply came attached to her last name. She was born on February 1st, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, the only child of Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley. From the very moment she entered the world, her life was unlike anything other children would ever experience. Her father was not simply a musician. He was a cultural force who had permanently altered the course of American music and built a name that reached virtually every corner of the globe.
Elvis Presley died on August 16, 1977, when Lisa Marie was just 9 years old. She found out the way no child should ever have to find out anything, suddenly, without any warning, and completely surrounded by the weight of the world's grief pouring in from every direction. The world mourned Elvis openly and publicly. Lisa Marie mourned him privately, as a little girl who had simply lost her father and had no real way to make sense of what that even meant. She inherited Graceland, along with a portion of his estate. But what stayed with her far longer than any of that was the image burned into her memory. A man she loved deeply, being slowly swallowed up by his own fame, his own isolation, and the people around him who kept giving him everything he wanted instead of everything he actually needed. That memory would find its way back to her years later, in a way she never could have anticipated.
Thriller, released in 1982, went on to become the best-selling album of all time. He was recognized everywhere he went, without exception. He could not step into any public space without immediately being surrounded by crowds. He built Neverland Ranch in California partly as a sanctuary where he could simply exist without the relentless pressure of the outside world pressing in on him. A private retreat filled with animals, rides, and a movie theater, all designed around the childhood he felt had been taken from him. So when Lisa Marie and Michael found each other in the early 1990s, they were two people who had far more in common than most people ever stopped to realize. Both had grown up as children, completely exposed to the public eye.
Both had famous fathers who had already defined the family name long before either of them had any say in it. Both had experienced the strange and distorting pull of fame from an extremely young age, and both carried the weight of that in ways most of the people around them could never fully understand. They had actually crossed paths briefly once before, when Lisa Marie was still a young girl attending one of Elvis's Las Vegas performances. Michael had been in the audience that night, but it was nothing more than a fleeting moment, with no real connection between them. It was not until the early 1990s, when they reconnected as adults and began speaking regularly over the phone, that something genuinely started to take shape. Lisa Marie wrote in her memoir that at first she simply believed he was lonely and needed someone to talk to. She did not read it as romantic pursuit, at least not right away.
She was wrong about that. By 1994, Michael was also navigating something that had the very real potential to bring down everything he had spent his life building. The first child molestation allegations had become public, and his name was dominating headlines for reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with music. The question most viewers are probably already sitting with is a fair one. How did two people carrying all of that actually manage to fall in love?
On the surface, her life appeared stable and in order, but Lisa Marie had always been drawn to intensity, and her marriage to Keo, while not a painful or hostile one, had quietly run out of road. Around that same period, she and Michael had been speaking on the phone with growing frequency. Lisa Marie wrote in her memoir that their conversations felt completely natural and effortless. They understood each other in a way that rarely needed explaining. Both knew firsthand what it felt like to grow up carrying a name that had belonged to the world long before it ever felt like their own. Both knew exactly what it meant to be surrounded by people at all times and still feel completely, utterly alone. Those phone calls became a steady and reliable part of their daily life. And somewhere in the middle of all that conversation, something changed. Michael invited Lisa Marie to Las Vegas.
At the time, she was still legally married to Danny Keough, and there was nothing publicly visible to suggest anything romantic was taking shape between her and Michael. To anyone watching from the outside, they appeared to be nothing more than two famous people who had formed an unlikely friendship. What actually happened during that trip to Las Vegas told an entirely different story. During that visit, Michael sat down with Lisa Marie and told her plainly and directly how he felt. He did not ease into it gradually or leave any room for ambiguity. According to what she wrote in her memoir, he looked at her and said, "I do not know if you have noticed, but I am completely in love with you. I want us to get married, and I want you to have my children."
Marie was not ready for that. She wrote that she could not respond right away. The words hit her so unexpectedly that she needed a moment just to sit with them before she could say anything at all. When she finally did speak, she told him she was overwhelmed and that she could not even find the right words to respond. And then she told him the truth, that she believed she was in love with him too. That conversation changed absolutely everything.
Less than 3 weeks after her divorce from Keough was finalized, Lisa Marie Presley and Michael Jackson were married. The ceremony took place on May 26, 1994, in La Romana in the Dominican Republic. It was small, quiet, and deliberately kept as far from public attention as possible. There was no lengthy guest list, no televised broadcast, and no advance announcement to the press. The two of them simply got married with only a handful of people. When news of the marriage became public, the reaction was immediate, and it came from everywhere. People genuinely did not know what to do with it. Some assumed it was a strategic arrangement put together to help Michael weather the allegations he was facing at the time. Others were convinced it simply could not be real. The tabloids attacked it from every possible angle. The notion that Elvis Presley's only daughter had married Michael Jackson struck most of the public as too bizarre to take at face value.
20 years later, intimate details of Lisa Marie Presley's relationship with Michael Jackson are coming to light.
But Lisa Marie was unambiguous in her memoir about exactly what she felt during that period. She described falling genuinely and deeply in love with him. She was not confused about her emotions, and she was not doing it for any reason beyond the simple fact that she wanted to be with him. Whether the rest of the world chose to believe that was an entirely separate matter. The marriage was real. What it was going to cost her, she was only just beginning to discover. When Lisa Marie Presley married Michael Jackson in May 1994, she believed she had a genuine understanding of who he was.
From here to the great unknown.
I've always been dramatic relationships. They were all like that because somehow I found some brief or whatever thrill in it at the moment.
The book, out now, released by Lisa's daughter Riley Keough nearly 2 years after her mom's death. The actress completing what Lisa started by listening to tapes of memories her mom left behind, which included Lisa's whirlwind romance with the
A
late
virgin.
King of Pop.
He was 35 years old at the time. He had been one of the most recognizable human beings on the planet for more than 2 decades. He had performed in front of millions of people, had met heads of state, and had spent most of his adult life surrounded by some of the most glamorous and powerful figures the entertainment world had to offer. And yet, he had never been physically intimate with anyone. She wrote, "I was terrified because I did not want to make the wrong move." That single line tells you an enormous amount about the dynamic between them right from the very start. Michael was the bigger name. He was older. He was the one who had pursued her, declared his love outright, and proposed marriage. But in this particular part of their relationship, Lisa Marie was the one carrying the weight of getting it right. She was fully aware that she was navigating something entirely new for him, and she held that awareness carefully. What made this even more striking was the sheer distance between Michael's public image and this very private reality.
Lisa Marie had grown up watching this exact dynamic play out with her father. Elvis Presley had been encircled by people whose role was to shield him from reality rather than help him confront it.
He had been given everything he asked for by the people closest to him, and it had slowly hollowed him out until there was nothing left to pull back. The parallels between what she had witnessed happen to Elvis and what she was beginning to observe in Michael were